You solved the linear program. The answer came back clean. Make 2 units of one product, 6 of the other, and take home 36,000 rupees. You write it up. And then the phone rings. The supplier can send more glass than you assumed. The profit margins were only estimates anyway. And marketing wants to know whether a third product is worth launching. Every one of those is a change to a number you already fed into the model. So do you run the whole method again? Every single time? You don't have to. The final table the simplex method already handed you is quietly holding almost every one of these answers. You just have to know where to look. Here is the plan we'll keep coming back to. A small factory makes 2 products. Each unit of the first earns 3. Each unit of the second earns 5. 3 resources hold it back. One machine caps the first product at 4. Another caps the second at 6. And a shared finishing line gives 18 hours, split 3 to one unit and 2 to the other. Draw those limits and they carve out a feasible region. Every production plan you are allowed to run lives inside this shape. The best corner is 2 and 6, worth 36. That is the answer everybody keeps. Now watch what everybody throws away. This is the final table the simplex method left behind. Most people read one number of it, the 36, and close the book. Nearly every question you are about to ask is already sitting in the other cells. Look along the bottom row, underneath the slack columns. 0, 1.5, 1. Those 3 numbers are the shadow prices, the marginal worth of one more unit of each resource. Hold on to them. They do most of the work from here. Start with a question that sounds almost philosophical. When the optimal plan leaves a product out entirely, why exactly is it out? Not because it earns nothing. It's out because the resources it would swallow are already earning more somewhere else. Every unit you force in has to be paid for with capacity taken from the current plan. And the shadow prices tell you exactly what that capacity is worth. So put the 2 side by side. On top, the profit the unit brings in. Below it, the value of the capacity it consumes, priced at the shadow prices. The gap between them is the reduced cost. Resources used minus profit earned. If that gap is positive, the product is a losing trade and the plan keeps it out. Now the reading is sharp. Suppose a product is idle with a reduced cost of 4. That is a verdict with a number attached. Nudge its margin up by anything under 4 and absolutely nothing changes, not one unit of the schedule. Push it past 4, and the product finally earns its place. The reduced cost is the exact size of the raise it needs. The profit margins were estimates. So ask the sharpest version of the question. How far can one of them drift before this corner stops being the best one? Here is the profit line through that corner. Change the first margin, and the line does one thing only. It pivots. The corner stays optimal as long as the pivoting line still leans on it from outside. Push the margin up. The line tips over and over until it lies flat against the finishing line edge. At 7.5 the corner has company. 2 plans now tie for best. Now bring it all the way down instead. At 0 the line lies flat along the other binding edge. Another tie. Between those 2 extremes, the same corner wins every time. Step outside the range and the plan really does jump. At 9, the best corner is no longer 2 and 6. It's 4 and 3, a different production schedule altogether. And you never needed the picture. Nudge the first margin by delta. In the bottom row of the table, every entry shifts by delta times the corresponding number in that variable's own row. Keep them all non-negative and the corner survives. 2 inequalities and out falls the range of optimality. 0 to 7.5. Anywhere in there, the plan stays 2 and 6. The profit total moves, of course. The plan does not. Different question now. Not the margins, but the resources. Suppose the supplier of the second resource can send more or less. What happens to the plan? Raise it, and that dashed ceiling lifts. The region grows, and the best corner slides along the finishing line edge, taking the profit up with it. Notice the corner is still where the same two constraints cross. Same binding pair. Same basis. Keep going and it hits a wall. At 18, the corner reaches the vertical axis. Push past that and the second resource stops being scarce at all. A different constraint takes over. Slide it the other way and the mirror image happens. At 6, the corner runs into the first machine's limit. Below that, again, a new pair of constraints is in charge. The table gives you those two walls without any sliding. Change the resource by delta, and each basic quantity moves by delta times the matching entry of that resource's slack column. Insist that none of them goes negative. The tightest pair of those wins, and there is the range of feasibility. 6 to 18. Inside it, the same set of constraints stays binding, so the shadow price holds steady. Let's plot what we just discovered. Along the bottom, how much of the second resource you have. Up the side, the best profit you can reach with it. It isn't a straight line. It's a chain of straight pieces, and each piece gets flatter than the one before. That shape is the whole idea of a shadow price in one picture. The slope of a piece is the shadow price. On the gold stretch it is 1.5. Every extra unit of the resource buys you 1.5 more profit steadily all the way from 6 to 18. The red dots are where the basis changes and the slope drops. So use it. You currently sit at 12, earning 36. The supplier offers 4 more units. 4 is comfortably inside the range, so multiply. 1.5 times 4 is 6. Profit goes to 42. No resolving, no simplex, 10 seconds of arithmetic. Now the mistake almost everyone makes. Offered 12 extra units, it is tempting to multiply again and claim 54. But the shadow price expired at 18. Past that point the resource is no longer scarce, extra units are worth nothing, and the true answer is 45. You would have promised your boss 9,000 rupees that do not exist. A shadow price is a local rate of change. Treat it like a derivative, never like a global multiplier. Back to that third product. It would use none of the first resource, 2 units of the second, and 2 of the third. It earns 6 per unit. Should the factory make it? You could add a column, rebuild the model and solve it again. Or you could do it on the back of an envelope, because the shadow prices already price every resource for you. multiply what it consumes by what that capacity is worth. Nothing from the first, to units of a resource worth 1.5, to units of a resource worth 1. 5 rupees of capacity, to earn 6 rupees of profit. 6 beats 5. 1 rupee of genuine gain per unit, so yes, launch it. Had the margin been 4 instead, it would have been eating 5 to earn 4, and the current plan would simply stay put. Same trick works for a brand new restriction. Say a shipping contract caps total output at 10 units. Don't resolve. Just check. Your plan makes to plus 6, which is 8, comfortably under 10. The new rule was never binding here, so the optimum doesn't move an inch. Tighten it to 5, and now the test fails. 8 is more than 5, your plan has just become illegal, and this time you do have to reoptimize. Even then you start from the table you already have and repair it, rather than beginning from zero. One catch. Every range we've computed assumed the rest of the world stood still. Real life rarely does you that favor. Prices move together. So here's the safety net. Express each change as a fraction of its own allowable room and add the fractions up. Think of it as a budget you are allowed to spend, and 100% is the whole budget. Take our factory. The first margin rises by 1.5, out of an allowed 4.5. That spends a third of the budget. The second margin falls by 1.5, out of an allowed 3. That's another half. A third plus a half is 5/6. Still inside the budget, so the plan is guaranteed to hold, even though both numbers moved at once. And read the failure carefully. Spend more than the budget and the rule goes quiet. It has not told you the plan is broken. It has only stopped guaranteeing it. Now, and only now, do you actually solve again. Step back and look at what one table gave you. A reduced cost, telling you the exact raise an ideal product needs. A range of optimality, telling you how far a margin can drift before the plan itself changes. A range of feasibility, telling you how far a resource can move before a different constraint takes charge. A shadow price, telling you what one more unit is worth, and the range telling you when to stop believing it. And the 100% rule, covering you when several numbers move together. Not one of those required running the method again. The answer was never the whole price. The table around it was. If you keep one habit from all of this, keep this one. Respect the ranges. Check optimality ranges for margins, feasibility ranges for resources, and the 100% rule when things move together. Next time we take a linear program with such a special shape that it barely needs the simplex method at all. Shipping goods from many sources to many destinations as cheaply as possible. See you there.